Okay, time to spin the big Obamacare prize wheel once again, and this time watch as the magical indicator stops on another rate hike from the insurance companies. Double digit, as a matter of fact, all with the blessing from the Obama administration and likely followed by another admonition that this is all for your own good, sheeple, so please stop whining. Let's dig into this by welcoming veteran columnist from the National Review Online and a Newsmax contributor, John Fund, along with the national columnist and University of Maryland professor of business, Peter Morici. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. And John, I'm going to begin with you on this one here. Gee, what a shocker. Health insurance providers, massive increases, including a 50% jump proposed by one of New Mexico's biggest carriers. Gee, John, let's all just be shocked together, shall we?
Well, of course, most of the increases are going to be far below that 50% outlier. Obviously, insurance premiums would have gone up regardless of whether or not Obamacare existed. But Obamacare is going to get all of the blame. And frankly, for making things more complicated and reducing the number of choices and everything else, insurance companies are using the cover of Obamacare to justify those rates by saying, hey, it's not us. Go complain to the folks in Washington. So once again, I think the political damage here will go to the people who passed Obamacare.
All right, so Peter, to you then, let's talk about the actual damage here. Does it go mostly to the Obama administration, or does it go to the insurance companies who just see money and they grab it?
Well, you can't blame people for grabbing money when they see it, but what Obamacare did was force people onto these exchanges where their choices in many areas are limited. And that provides the opportunity for the large insurers, those tend to be the more reliable ones in terms of service, to essentially jack up their rates. They essentially are getting little monopolies, local, regional monopolies. We've created a market structure very similar to cable TV, where you pay more and more, quite without regard to what the technology could provide. But you have to remember that Obamacare wasn't supposed to just not keep rates from, have rate increases like we had before. It's not fair to say, well, rates were going up before. Remember Mr. Obama talking about bending the curve as well as you can keep the insurance if you like it? The bottom line is Obamacare has not contained costs. It hasn't delivered as promised. And a lot of people are paying a heck of a lot more for health care than they did before. A lot of small businesses are. And so I think the Democrats are going to get some heat. But they're going to gain from this in the end. The reason being is so many people are getting subsidies, and so many people can't imagine life without those subsidies at these high rates because they can't go back to what they had before, that I don't think it's going to be that much of a liability for Clinton to carry in the election. She'll just have to talk about how she's going to, quote, fix it.
How well you mentioned Hillary Clinton here, because let's move on. More people see Hillary Clinton as dishonest and untrustworthy, according to the latest CNN ORC international poll. John, to you first. She slipped in personal favorability, slipped in honesty and trustworthiness. But will this really, all these numbers that we keep seeing, it doesn't seem as if anything makes a real difference when it comes down to her overall electability.
Well, she has 100% name ID, and the American people have often elected flawed leaders in the past who they thought were nonetheless effective. Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon come to mind, who didn't have sterling reputations for character. Having said that, she's running against a Republican generic X brand, and while she leads those candidates, she hasn't had to engage them, and she hasn't had to put forward a platform. So frankly, the general election right now is a referendum on Hillary Clinton, and it's too early to really see if she can overcome the negatives she has with her positives, which are experience and the fact that she has an enormous base, and of course the historic nature of her candidacy being a woman.
Peter, I got about a minute left, so let me get to you on this. What John said, and he used the word engage. Is that just it? We need to all calm down and stop worrying about the numbers right now until Hillary Clinton actually engages somebody on the right and decides she wants to get into a verbal fight.
Well, we have to have somebody emerge among Republicans the way Mr. Obama did to be in the two-horse race that they had, to see a real contrast. But right now, even among the well-known Republicans, Hillary Clinton outpolls them among Republican women. This is an historic election with regard to women, and I think women are willing to hold their noses and put up with an untrustworthy woman that's the responsible for the deaths of male diplomats in Libya. Whatever it takes to get a female president. I think that she's credible in that regard to them. And unless the Republicans can really come up with someone very strong that looks a bit like Obama did, I don't think they can win.
John, would you agree, 20 seconds left, that Republican women are willing to, and Democratic women as well, willing to hold their noses regarding Hillary?
Well, I would be astonished if polls actually show that voters who are female and identify as Republican voters are actually voting for Hillary over a Republican candidate. But having said that, that's the first blush. Ultimately, yes, there's an historic nature to her candidacy, but also issues in the economy engage, and those tend to become much more important towards the end of a campaign. So I think it's way too premature to write anyone's political epitaph.
Let's just use the numbers, talk about them, because that's what they're good for until we get down to business. Peter Morici and John Fund, gentlemen, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us. When we continue right here, the Iranian nuke deal and shoving what some believe are the realities right into your face. Coming up on The Hard Line.